When they reached the hotel lobby, Kim pulled on Stephen's hand, signaling for him to stop. "Why did he call you Grand Palace Master? Are you hiding something from me?" Stephen turned around. "Yes." After a pause, he added, "But I can't tell you right now. When the time is right, I'll tell you everything about me." He had yet to resolve the issue with the Addams family in Washington, D.C., and there were also several high-ranking people in the palace who didn't acknowledge him as the Grand Palace Master. Telling Kim his identity would only cause her to live in fear of the unknown. Kim looked into Stephen's eyes, trying to grasp his thoughts, but he gave nothing away. Maybe Stephen had asked the owner of Global Investment for his assistance, and he couldn't reveal any information without his permission. She heaved a sigh. "I understand, but sometimes, instead of doing everything on your own, it's easier to have someone by your side who you can rely on." Stephen fell silent as they left the hotel and walked to their car. In this world, who could he rely on? The goals he wanted to achieve were beyond the capabilities of ordinary people. When they returned to the villa, Stephen saw Alice wipe the floor with a wet cloth. Natalie stood a short distance away. "Make sure it's clean. Did you approach Stephen so that you could live like a princess? It's a shame. He's not worth anything to our family. If you want to stay here, you'll have to earn your keep." Kim took off her shoes at the doorway. When she looked up and saw the furious look on Stephen's face, she knew something was wrong. Kim hurried inside. She was shocked to see Alice cleaning the floor. "Mom, what are you doing? Alice is our guest. Why are you making her do housework?" "Guest? What a joke! She's not qualified to be our guest. Letting her do housework in exchange for living here is already a good offer." Stephen helped Alice stand up. One side of her face was swollen. "What happened to your cheek?" Alice fidgeted with her cloth in her hands. "Nothing. I accidentally bumped into something." Kim's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mom, did you hit Alice?" "And if I did, I'm your mother, and that means this villa is mine. If she does something I don't like, isn't it right for me to teach her a lesson?" Natalie acted like she hadn't done anything wrong. "You can't just hit people whenever you feel like it," Kim yelled. Before Natalie could say anything else, Stephen made his way towards her from across the room. "What makes you think this house belongs to you? And why do you think it's okay to hit my friend as you please?" The chilling look in Stephen's eyes made Natalie freeze. She was reminded of the last time he looked at her in the same way. Natalie's gaze flickered to the floor behind him. There were countless bloody bodies piled on top of each other. But when she blinked, the floor was clean again. She subconsciously moved back. "Don't come near me." Kim tried to intervene. "Let's calm down and talk this out." Stephen ignored her and stepped closer, forcing Natalie into a corner. She cowered in fear as he loomed over her. "Don't you dare touch me! I'm your mother-in-law!" "My mom, huh? You're not qualified. Listen carefully, I'm only going to say this once. Alice isn't your servant. She's my friend. Be thankful you're Kim's mother. That's the only reason I'm letting this go with just a warning." Natalie was relieved when Stephen turned away and took Alice back to her room. "Kim, this is what he's really like. He has no respect for his mother-in-law. If he dared to threaten me today, who's to say he won't threaten you tomorrow? Divorce him as soon as possible." Kim felt conflicted as she looked in the direction where Stephen and Alice had left. "Mom, don't you realize that you're the one who started all this?" 10 minutes later, Kim returned to her room. She was exhausted after lecturing Natalie and trying to calm her down. Just as Kim was about to lie down, someone knocked on her door. "Come in," she called out with a trace of annoyance in her voice. Stephen came into the room and closed the door behind him. "I'm sorry about what happened just now." He apologized, not because he gave Natalie a warning, but because he ignored Kim when she tried to stop them from arguing. He had ignored Kim's feelings. "It's fine," Kim replied indifferently. Ever since their meeting with Peter, she felt like Stephen had become an entirely different person. Stephen turned around. "Okay, I'm heading back to my room." He paused in the middle of opening the door. "A long time ago, I was a beggar on the streets. Being bullied and beaten was a daily occurrence. I prayed for someone to get me out of that hellhole, even if only for a moment. At that time, he had hoped for anyone to lend him a hand, but no one was willing. Alice was just like me from the past. That's why I want to help her." Without waiting for a reply, Stephen left the room. Kim's heart sank. No wonder he lost his composure when he found out that Natalie had hit Alice. She wasn't aware that he had such a difficult past. The next morning, Kim woke up early to prepare a big breakfast for Stephen and Alice. When she finished setting the table, Stephen came out of his room with his car keys. Alice waited for him by the front door. "Where are you going? Don't you want to have breakfast first?" "Why are you even asking him?" Natalie said. "He'll eat if he wants to." She was still annoyed by Stephen's warning last night, but she was too afraid to look him in the eye. "I'm going shopping with Alice. We didn't get a chance yesterday." "Wait, why don't I come with you?" "You should go to work. The Clark family's collaboration with the Cassidy Group will be announced today. If you're not there, someone might take credit for it. I'll see you at home later." Stephen smiled before leaving the house with Alice. Natalie slammed her bowl on the table. "Kim, we can't let him stay here any longer. We have to kick him out." "If you kick them out, you'll be paying the property fees on your own," Kim snapped. She didn't have an appetite anymore. She grabbed her handbag and rushed out the door. Natalie sat alone at the dining table. She had to find a way to get her hands on the owner of Global Investments' money. Then, she wouldn't have to worry about the property fees anymore. Kim arrived just in time for the meeting at the Cassidy Group. Helen gave everyone a rundown on the Clark family. "The Clark family is searching for a business partner in Los Angeles. Our company will grow if the negotiations are successful. Yesterday, I arranged a meeting with Peter Clark. Kim, how did it go?" Kim recalled Peter getting punched and his father, Victor, kneeling on the floor. "It went well." Helen urged her to continue. "What about the collaboration?" "If nothing unexpected happens, the Clark family will send a representative to sign the contract with us today." "You sound confident," Harry pointed out. "Are you sure you didn't do anything shameful with Peter last night? Everyone knows that Peter is obsessed with women. If you didn't spend the night with him, why would he have agreed to sign a contract with our company so easily?" The meeting last night was a trap set by Helen. They would make a huge profit from their collaboration with the Clark family, and at the same time, they could use Kim's shameless actions to drive her out of the company. Kim gave him a cold look. "I didn't do anything of the sort." "Really? Then tell me, why did Peter agree to sign a contract with you?" It's true that Peter had some reservations, but Victor came and changed his mind. A brief silence filled the conference room, followed by laughter. The members of the Cassidy family started criticizing her. "If you're going to lie, at least make it sound believable. I wonder where you learned how to lie with a straight face." "The Clark family has connections with the Black Dragon Guild. Why would they agree to sign a contract with us so easily? It's obvious that you embarrassed the family last night. I suggest we remove her from the vice president position and kick her out of the family." They were interrupted when a man barged into the room. "Who are you? Can't you see we're having an important meeting?" Helen called out to the security guards. "Drag him out of the building." The man had no intention of leaving. He introduced himself calmly. "I'm Victor Clark, and I'm here to deliver the contract." Victor looked around, and his gaze fell on Kim. She was the Grand Palace Master's wife. It was in the Clark family's best interest to curry favor from her. Helen rushed over to Victor and extended her right hand. "So you're Mr. Victor. I apologize for not recognizing you. I'm Helen Cassidy, the CEO of the Cassidy Group. It's nice to meet you." Victor nodded in response. He didn't shake hands with her. To him, the Cassidy Group was no match for his family. If it weren't for the Grand Palace Master's wife's presence in the room, he wouldn't have given these people even a second of his time. Helen awkwardly retracted her hand. "Are you here to sign a contract with us?" Victor chuckled before brushing past her and walking up to Kim. He didn't hesitate to get on his knees. Everyone looked on in astonishment. This was the head of the Clark family. Why was he kneeling in front of Kim? Helen hurried over. "Mr. Victor, you—" Victor wasn't courteous to her. "Be quiet." His attitude changed completely when he faced Kim. "My son is immature and ignorant. I'd like to formally apologize for what he did yesterday." Kim was at a loss. "Mr. Victor, you don't have to do this. Please, get up." No, this is only appropriate." Victor held out the contract. "This is an agreement between the Clark family and the Cassidy Group. I've already signed it. We'll be happy to collaborate with your company. In addition, all the profits will go to you. My family won't take a single cent." Kim had no choice but to take the contract. "All right, I accept." "Thank you, Miss Kim. Please continue with your meeting. I'll be leaving now." Victor glared at Helen when he passed her. "Our family only recognizes Miss Kim as our business partner. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say." Before Victor came, he had instructed his people to investigate the Cassidy Group. He was already aware that the Cassidy family didn't take Kim seriously. "I understand," Helen gritted out. Her plan was supposed to be perfect. She had taken into account everything that could have gone wrong. But she never would have imagined that the head of the Clark family would personally pay them a visit and apologize to Kim. It must have been the owner of Global Investments' doing. Who the hell was he? Stephen and Alice shopped at Lemon's Apparel, a high-end clothing store. Alice had never seen this many expensive clothes in her life. When she reached for one of the price tags, she was surprised by the number of zeros. "Stephen, I don't need these kinds of clothes. Why don't we just go home?" "Don't worry, I have the money." Since Stephen was adamant, Alice decided to compromise and choose the cheapest clothes she could find. Stephen's phone rang. Andrew was calling. It seemed like the Addams family was finally making their move. "I have to take this. Look around without me." Stephen left the store and hurried to a corner with fewer people around to answer the phone.
"The Addams family has sent Melinda Addams to Los Angeles. She's expected to arrive by tomorrow,"
Andrew reported. Stephen recognized the name. Melinda was his aunt, and she was a cruel and ambitious person. The Addams family was finally taking him seriously. "All right, keep an eye on her." Stephen hung up and went back inside. There were a lot more people than he remembered. A group of people were crowding around the area where he last saw Alice. They were whispering to each other. Alice was at the center of the crowd. "I'm not the one who dirtied this shirt. It was like this when I came in." A man in his 30s held a shirt in his hand. There was a large stain on the front. "Do you know what kind of place this is? Lemon's Apparel, one of the top 100 clothing stores in the world. Our staff are well-trained, and our clothes are of the highest quality. You expect me to believe that this shirt was stained when you came in? Look at your clothes. They're dirty and full of patches. The only person who could have stained this shirt is you." This man was a sales associate at Lemon's Apparel. He was the one who accidentally stained the shirt, but it was too expensive for him to compensate. If the manager discovered his error, he might be fired from his job. Fortunately, a teenage girl had been wandering around. She was the perfect person to use as his scapegoat. "I told you I'm not the one who caused that stain on the shirt," Alice said defiantly. "Also, my clothes are clean." The sales associate laughed. "Why don't you take a walk outside? Everyone will avoid you like the plague. You didn't come here alone, did you? Call your parents and ask them to come. This shirt is worth tens of thousands of dollars. If you can't compensate our store for this ruined shirt, I'm calling the police." Alice worried when she heard about the hefty price tag. Stephen pushed through the crowd and stood next to Alice. He glared at the domineering sales associate in front of them. "Alice, what's going on?" "Sorry for causing you trouble, but I really didn't stain that shirt. I thought it was pretty and touched it briefly. Maybe I shouldn't have touched it at all. This was my fault." The sales associate looked Stephen up and down. His sweater, pants, and shoes were all worthless goods on the market. "You're finally here. Are you her brother? Come on, pay the bill. Even if you're a penny short, I'm going to call the police." "Sure, go ahead and call them. Every store at this mall has a security camera. I don't believe this store is an exception." The sales associate was flustered when Stephen agreed to get the police involved. He went close to Stephen and looked down on him, using his height to his advantage. "Don't forget where this is. The owner of this store is famous overseas. He's not someone you can afford to offend." "You seem to have forgotten, but we're in the United States right now. Plus, you're an employee of Lemon Apparel's chain store in Los Angeles. Does it matter where the home store is located? Besides, this is my sister. You can mess with me, but you can't mess with her." Stephen gave the sales associate a light shove, but it was enough for him to fall to the floor. Alice hadn't been in Los Angeles for long, but she had already heard the rumors of Stephen being a useless son-in-law. But their first meeting and today and last night's incidents proved otherwise. The sales associate had underestimated Stephen's strength. He wouldn't be surprised if he had bruised from the fall. "Are you trying to kill me? Someone hurry up and call the police for me. We can't let this criminal go." A man in a suit stepped out from behind the register and went up to them. He was the manager of this store, and he wasn't pleased to see his employee on the ground. "What's going on here?" The sales associate rushed to his feet and informed the manager of everything that had happened. Of course, he made sure to exaggerate the details. The manager faced Stephen and Alice. "There's no need to drag this out. Give me the money for the shirt and get lost." Frankly, he was already being quite generous. Having people cause a scene in their store was enough to ruin their reputation. If rumors were to spread, who would visit their store in the future? Furthermore, what if other people were to mimic their actions today for the sole purpose of damaging their store's reputation? Regardless of the truth, he had to use them to set an example. Stephen frowned. "You've only heard one side of the story. Why don't you ask us what happened instead of jumping to conclusions?" "Is there a need for that? This man is an employee of our store, and his account is credible." "Your logic is amusing, but coincidentally, I also have an ultimatum for you. Leave and never come back." If it were Alice or some other unsuspecting customer shopping alone at this store, today would have been their worst nightmare. The store had no interest in what really happened. They only cared about their reputation and getting compensation. The crowd pitied Alice, but Stephen's arrogant tone didn't sit right with them. As for the manager, he wasn't threatened. "Young people these days are too bold for their own good. Acting tough will become your disadvantage." Stephen ignored him and called Jack. "Place a bucket of paint in front of Lemon's Apparel." "Are you calling for reinforcements?" the manager asked. "All right, let's see how far you can take this." 10 minutes later, Jack arrived with a bucket of paint. He happened to be nearby, so he came to see if there was anything he could help with. "Is the CEO of Lemon's Apparel affiliated with the Palace?" Stephen asked. It hadn't been long since he had become the Grand Palace Master, so he wasn't familiar with all of the Palace's business partners yet. Jack did a brief search on his laptop. "Yes, his name is Louis Lemons, and he's one of the Palace's employees. If he doesn't take care of this, then he'll no longer be an employee after today." If someone were to overhear their conversation, they would think that Stephen and Jack were a pair of lunatics. Louis was the owner of one of the top 100 clothing stores, and his net worth was hundreds of billions. Why would he be anyone's employee? They must be joking. The manager was annoyed when they ignored him and whispered to each other. "What are you planning to do with a bucket of paint? If you want to ruin these clothes to mess up the store, then by all means, go ahead. But let me tell you something. The cheapest clothes in this store cost around $35,000. There's even a limited edition dress that's worth more than $7 million. As long as you can afford it, you can do whatever you want. Using paint to scare people? How childish. This tactic may have worked at a cheap clothing store, but not here. Any piece of clothing was worth a fortune. The paint's not for the clothes. It's for you. Stephen grabbed a bucket of paint and flung the contents towards the manager. He made sure to control his strength so that the paint wouldn't get on the surrounding clothes. This was the last thing the manager expected, so he could only raise his arms to try and block the paint, but it didn't do much good. He panicked and flailed his arms to get the paint off of him, but in the process, clumps of paint splattered on the clothes around him. The crowd rubbed their eyes to make sure they weren't hallucinating. Clothing worth millions had been ruined in a split second. The manager was so shocked that he couldn't speak properly. He had stained the clothes with paint, and everyone in the store were witnesses. He regretted picking a fight with a madman like Stephen. If he couldn't figure out a way to resolve the damages, his career and his life would come to an end. The manager pointed a shaky finger at Stephen. I'm going to call the police and hire the best lawyer. I'll make you lose everything, and I'll make you spend the rest of your life in prison. Sure, call them anytime. By the way, where's your phone? Maybe you'll be receiving a call from your boss soon. Sure enough, not even 2 minutes later, the manager's phone rang. Lewis sent a video call invitation. The manager pressed the accept button with trembling fingers. He couldn't believe that Lewis, the CEO of Lemons Apparel, had taken the initiative to send a video call. As soon as the call connected, Lewis ordered the manager to turn the camera towards the Palace Master. The manager was dumbfounded. He had no idea who Lewis was referring to. He came to the conclusion that it was someone's nickname, but he wasn't aware of anyone among his staff with such a strange nickname. Mr. Lewis, there's no one that goes by that name here. Lewis didn't look too happy to hear that. Before he could yell at the manager, Stephen interrupted him. He's talking about me. Even though the manager didn't believe him, the angry look on Lewis's face was more than enough of a confirmation. He turned the camera towards Stephen. Lewis immediately apologized. Please forgive my staff for disrespecting you. It was my negligence. I'll make sure they receive proper training. He knew that if he got on the bad side of the Grand Palace Master today, his company might disappear tomorrow. Okay, your manager and his employee stained the clothes at your store in Los Angeles. Ask them for compensation. Stephen didn't bother waiting for Lewis's answer. He left the store, followed by Jack and Alice. The manager grabbed the sales associate's collar. This was all because of him. The clothes he ruined were worth millions. That was the equivalent to losing everything he had. Harry paced back and forth at the Cassidy family's villa. Grandma, I can't take this anymore. Kim needs to disappear. Now. I don't think you understand the situation, Helen said. There's nothing you can do. At least, not right now. Kim had the support of the owner of Global Investment. One of the top leaders in the housing management industry, James, was also on her side. And just recently, Victor, the head of the Clark family, who were big shots in the real estate industry, had signed a contract because of her. If Harry were to make a move under these circumstances, their company would be ruined. Harry threw up his hands in frustration. When did you become so hesitant? Now that Kim has more authority at the company, her popularity has also gone up. If we keep letting her rise through the ranks, even you won't be able to make her listen to you anymore. What's more, Kim and Stephen are getting close. He's an outsider, and that will never change. What are you going to do if the Cassidy family ceases to exist? Even though he was right, Helen didn't change her mind. Harry glanced at Rebecca, signaling for her to say something. Grandma, do you really want Kim to take over our family's business? Do you not care if the Cassidy family changes to the Addams family?
She's right. If Grandpa were still here, how do you think he would feel?
Helen wasn't fooled by their acting. It was obvious that Harry and Rebecca were putting on a show to try and persuade her to take action. But it was true that they couldn't let things continue like this.
All right, I get it already. Do you have any ideas on how to deal with Kim?
Harry and Rebecca looked at each other with a triumphant expression. They had succeeded. Harry took a seat next to Helen.
I may have spoken out of turn just now, but I'm doing this for the family. I've worked hard for the company all these years.
Helen glared at him.
Get to the point.
Harry cleared his throat before continuing.
Kim's authority at the company isn't what it used to be. We can't drag her down through normal methods, or else our company will suffer the consequences. That's why we can't go easy on her.
What do you mean?
We should kidnap Kim.
Helen slammed her walking stick on the floor.
Stop talking nonsense.
Kidnapping Kim was the same as destroying their company.
Grandma, listen to me. I'm a member of the Cassidy family, and I'm Kim's cousin. I'm suggesting this for the good of the family. If we don't get rid of Kim, our company will continue to be unstable. If I send someone to kidnap Kim and have them spend a night together, she'll no longer have a place at the company. Besides, why do you think she hasn't divorced a good-for-nothing husband like Stephen for the past 3 years? She's probably no stranger to intimacy.
But if this gets out, our family's image will be ruined.
Helen was more worried about their reputation than Kim's safety.
Don't worry, Grandma. Leave this to me. I won't be asking people in the city for help. It would be easy for someone to do a background check on them and find out their identities. Also, I heard Kim has connections with Christina Silva. We'll have to rely on factions outside of the city, like those in San Francisco.
It sounds like you planned this out a while ago. Don't do these kinds of things behind my back again,
Helen warned.
Harry nodded solemnly. I understand. The main reason I'm looking into San Francisco's underworld is because they're divided. There are many different organizations and affiliations. It's also not easy for people in Christina's network to infiltrate them. And with recent events, there's been a drastic shift in hierarchy within the Black Dragon Guild. They're one of the most influential underworld organizations in San Francisco.
While this was part of Harry's plan, he didn't disclose all of the details to Helen. He had to make sure that Kim couldn't return to the company. Even if something unexpected happened during the kidnapping, what could Helen do? Helen thought it over.
All right, proceed with your plan. But remember, you're not allowed to kill her, and you can't let anyone find out.
Harry was thrilled that she was on board.
I'll start making arrangements.
As for Rebecca, she couldn't wait for Kim to be shamed and kicked out of the company. When the time came, the owner of Global Investment would realize who he was really in love with. While the three of them had their own plans, they did have something in common. Kim's downfall would benefit all of them. At this time, Stephen and Alice had just returned home. Stephen gave 2 bags to Alice. Put these clothes in the laundry basket. Oh, and don't tell Kim what happened today at the mall. Alice winked. Don't worry, I know how to keep secrets. By the time Kim came home from work, Stephen had finished preparing dinner. Alice, how was your shopping trip? Kim asked with a smile. Great. Oh yeah, Stephen bought a silk scarf for you. Stephen sighed. He had originally planned to surprise Kim with a gift. You talk too much. After having dinner and washing the dishes, Stephen went back to his room. He was surprised to see Kim inside and bent over the bed. Her shirt had ridden up, revealing more skin than she usually did at home. Stephen was confused as to why Kim made his bed, but it dawned on him that perhaps she was here to prepare for tonight. Even though they had been married for 3 years, they always used separate rooms, and they were rarely intimate with each other. Kim, he called out, do you want to sleep together tonight? Kim whirled around with a bashful look on her face. What nonsense are you saying? When did I say I want to sleep with you? Then why did you help me make my bed?
Kim was momentarily at a loss for words. I'm your wife. Isn't it normal for me to make your bed? It is normal, but isn't it also normal for couples to share a bed at night? Stephen teased. Kim's face reddened. Her heart thundered in her chest. Whatever, I'm leaving. She tossed the blanket on the bed and ran out of the room in a fluster. Stephen was left alone in the room. His wife was really shy. But on another note, it seemed like their divorce crisis was over. The next morning, Kim saw Stephen preparing breakfast earlier than usual. Alice diligently helped him. Natalie sat in the living room, watching Alice set the table. Ever since Stephen gave Natalie a warning, she no longer tried to kick Alice out of the house, but she still talked to her rudely.
If you didn't work so hard, would I have let you stay? You should do your job as well. Don't think I'm not saying anything because of Stephen.
Natalie trailed off when she felt Stephen's gaze bore into her back. She turned around and changed the topic.
Hey you, why haven't you paid the property fees yet? Do you know how embarrassing it is for me to keep putting this off?
Kim was annoyed by Natalie's nagging this early in the morning. Mom, it's not like this house belongs to Stephen. Why do you keep asking him for money?
Who cares? It's a fact that the owner of Global Investment gave him the funds for safekeeping. You don't have to worry about the property fees, Stephen said calmly. By the way, Kim, I have something I want to discuss with you.
What a coincidence. Me too.
Really? You can tell me first.
Well, it's like this. I'm assuming Alice is around 17 years old. Many people her age are in school, so I was thinking about enrolling her into a high school and letting her study. Kim had wanted to tell Stephen about this last night, but she left his room before she had the chance because of his teasing. Stephen's face brightened.
I wanted to tell you the same thing. Looks like we're on the same wavelength.
Upon hearing their conversation, Alice quickly shook her head. I don't want to go to school. I'll be okay with doing chores around the house, or maybe finding a part-time job. I can even help Kim with her work. Natalie rolled her eyes.
Of course you don't want to leave. Alice, listen to me, Stephen said. This is the perfect age to go out into the world and learn some useful skills. When you come back, you can put everything you learned into practice and become Kim's best assistant.
He threw a glance at Natalie.
You don't want to be called useless all the time, do you?
You're not useless, Alice retorted. She had witnessed Stephen's strength firsthand. Even so, Alice gave it some thought. She concluded that going back to school would be the best option. Okay, I'll go to school and study. When I come back, I'll be as capable as Stephen. Natalie scoffed.
You think he's capable? How naive.
Kim had a feeling that Alice knew something she didn't. She would find an opportunity later and ask her about it. As of late, it was getting more difficult to understand what was going through Stephen's mind. After breakfast, Stephen drove Kim to work. On the way back, he gave Jack a call and told him that he wanted to send Alice to school.
Based on Alice's current situation, there's one school that suits her needs. The Los Angeles Academy is a school for wealthy families. The enrollment fee alone is $500,000, not to mention other fees like tuition, textbooks, and meals. Even though it's pricey, their goal is to nurture their students' talents. They develop lesson plans based on their students' interests and background. In addition, this school is owned by the Palace. The principal of the school, Jeffrey Waller, is also a director of the Los Angeles Education Bureau. His net worth is around $10 billion, but he has a low rank at the Palace. Contact Jeffrey and make arrangements for Alice's enrollment, Stephen instructed.
Meanwhile, at the Cassidy group, Helen and Harry were taking the opportunity before Kim arrived to discuss their plan. Grandma, I contacted the Black Dragon Guild and spent $1 million to invite Troy to Los Angeles. Our plan is going smoothly, Harry said. Helen couldn't help but be a little worried.
Is this man named Troy reliable?
I've asked around. Even though the former head of the Black Dragon Guild, Roland Adams, is dead, the new head, Matthew Lozano, is just as skilled. It hasn't been that long since he took on the position, but he's already settled the conflicts between the city and the underworld. Troy is one of Matthew's subordinates. It was almost time for work, and Harry was afraid that the other people at the company would eavesdrop.
He went closer to Helen and whispered the rest of the plan's details. Fine, I'll agree to it. To prevent the Cassidy family from falling into the hands of an outsider like Stephen, sacrificing Kim will be worth it.
The Los Angeles Academy disregarded the number of years of compulsory education, and students of all ages could apply. They implemented lesson plans that were unique to each student according to their aptitude to increase proficiency in learning. Every month, the school accepted new students, but there was a catch. Each student was required to pay an enrollment fee of $500,000. As for the tuition, it varied from student to student, but it was not a low amount. This was to be expected as the school hired top-class teachers from around the country and even across the globe. As such, despite the expensive fees, wealthy families would not hesitate to send their children to this school. As the Grand Palace master, Stephen didn't think too much of the $500,000 enrollment fee. However, this school was owned by the palace, and he didn't want to expose his identity. On the day Stephen brought Alice to enroll, there were many parents with their children at the entrance. The parking lot was filled with luxury cars like the Porsche, Mercedes-Benz S-Class, BMW 7 Series, and Audi Q8. Stephen's non-luxury car stood out like a sore thumb. Stephen took Alice to the registration office and waited in line. The secretaries who worked for the wealthy families were gossiping near the back. Hey, did you hear? Someone donated $100 million to the school. That's enough money to build another school. My boss only donated $1 million. Hey, how much did your boss donate? Not much, only $1.5 million. My boss donated $3 million. The person who donated $100 million was Stephen, and he didn't really care about the money. To him, he was only funding his own business. However, the secretaries were engaged in a heated discussion regarding whose boss donated more money. Whoever's boss came out on top would be superior. Stephen and Alice were one of the last people of the day to enroll. When it was their turn to fill out the form, a woman and her son cut in front of them. That poor excuse of a car is yours, right? What made you think you were qualified to enroll that girl next to you in this school? What are you talking about? I'm here to register, just like everyone else. Why does it matter what kind of car I'm driving? Of course it matters. The enrollment fee is $500,000 alone. Adding on the tuition fees and the like, you'll have to pay a total of several million. Can you afford it? Of course I can afford it. I just donated $100 million to the school. The woman laughed as she put a hand on her son's shoulders. Did you hear that? When school starts, you have to study hard. Otherwise, you'll turn out like him. She felt like that wasn't enough to humiliate Stephen, so she continued. If you really have the means to donate $100 million, I can do a live broadcast to raise your popularity. Even if you want to do that, you'd still have to wait in line. You want me to queue up? What a joke. Do you know who I am? The vice principal, Dr. Gold, is my husband. I brought my son here to register. Is there a need for us to line up? The secretaries tried to dissuade Stephen from arguing with the woman. After all, not just any wealthy family could achieve a position like vice president at this school. Hey, just forget it. A wise man should know when to back down when the odds are against him. Cutting in line isn't that big of a deal. Getting on the vice president's wife's bad side is completely unnecessary. Their family is one of the wealthiest in the city. The real reason why Stephen had donated $100 million was because he didn't want to wait in line to enroll. But after thinking it over, he realized that it might be better to line up like everyone else to avoid drawing unnecessary attention to himself. Stephen turned to the two staff members in charge of the enrollment paperwork. What do you think? Mrs. Gold is a VIP at our school. She's not required to wait in line. Did that kind of privilege exist? In that case, Stephen took out a black card. Since VIPs don't have to wait in line, then what about the only black card owner since this school's establishment? This was, after all, a school for students from wealthy families. The more influential a student's family background was, the better they were treated. And the principal of the school, Jeffrey Waller, had personally given Stephen this black card. Stephen hadn't planned on using it, but Mrs. Gold's son and the other students might use today as an excuse to bully Alice for not having a prominent family background. The two staff members eyed the card with suspicion.
In all the years since the school was founded, they had never seen a black card before. Even the vice principal of the school, Mr. Gold, only had a silver card. But recently, someone donated $100 million to the school. What if the principal gave this person a black card? The staff exchanged a glance. I'm sorry, sir, but we'll need to check. It has to be fake, Mrs. Gold said. Do you think someone like him, who drives a non-luxury car, would receive a black card from the school? There's no need to check. Chase him away. Mrs. Gold's words were enough to convince the two staff members. They decided that there was no need to check the card. Sir, please do not disturb our work. Otherwise, we'll have to call security to kick you out. Mrs. Gold waved her hand dismissively. The gig's up. Get out of here before the security guards actually show up. Stephen ignored her. Are you sure you don't want to verify my card? Seeing that he wasn't afraid, even though he provoked the wife of the vice president, Mrs. Gold decided to teach him a lesson. I'm busy, so I don't have time for this. She turned to the secretaries. You, and you. Drag him out. When neither of them moved, she resorted to threatening them. My husband is the vice president. One word from me and your boss's kids can forget about having an easy time at school. Who will your boss blame? You or me? The secretaries exchanged a nervous glance. In the worst-case scenario, they would be fired. Moreover, Mrs. Gold's husband had an influential position at the school. They hurried over to Stephen and Alice, prepared to drag them out by force if necessary. The two staff members kept quiet. Neither of them were willing to step in. While Stephen's attention was focused on the secretaries, Mrs. Gold's son walked up to Alice and slapped her across the face. You think you're worthy enough to attend the same school as me? Get lost. This caught Alice off guard. She held her face, feeling incredibly wronged. Stephen turned around and glared at Mrs. Gold's son. Did you just hit my sister? Stephen and Alice had had similar childhoods, and he thought of her like his younger sister. He would not let anyone bully her. And if he did, what are you going to do about it? Mrs. Gold shot back. Stephen ignored her and turned to Alice. Let me teach you something. No one in this world has the right to hit you or insult you. If they're not bothering you, then you won't bother them. But if they mess with you, then you pay them back for what they did tenfold. With his encouragement, Alice took a few steps forward and slapped Mrs. Gold's son 10 times. Everything happened too fast for Mrs. Gold and her son to react. Alice calmly returned to Stephen's side. I returned his slap tenfold. Good job. Mrs. Gold didn't expect them to take things this far. She reached inside her purse for her phone. I'm calling my husband. When he comes, you'll be sorry for what you did. After Mrs. Gold informed her husband that someone had slapped their son, he came running in less than 20 minutes. Several security guards followed him. Who hit my son? Mr. Gold demanded. Mrs. Gold pointed at Stephen and Alice. They did. We are only here to register, but his sister slapped our son in front of everyone. Mr. Gold looked at Stephen and Alice suspiciously. He'd never seen them before, but as the vice president, he couldn't jump to conclusions. Are you two aware that this is an elite school? Not just anyone can come in here. Don't you believe me? Mrs. Gold pointed to the secretaries. Everyone here saw what happened. His sister slapped my son. Am I telling the truth or not? The secretaries didn't dare to offend Mrs. Gold. They all nodded in agreement. Mr. Gold glanced at his son. His cheek was slightly red, and with numerous witnesses, it was impossible to overlook the evidence. Security, arrest them. Just as the security guards rushed forward, Stephen took out his black card again and waved it in front of Mr. Gold. Open your eyes and take a look. What is this? Mr. Gold was stunned. That was the only black card that had ever been given out since the school was established. He could not be any more familiar with this card because Jeffrey was the one who told him to issue it. Knowing this, it wasn't hard to guess this man's identity. The man standing in front of him was Stephen Adams, the person who donated $100 million to the school. Jeffrey had specifically told him that he could not risk offending Stephen. Even though Jeffrey himself had a net worth of billions of dollars, Stephen could make him lose everything with only a few words.
Compared to Jeffrey, his own assets were a little more than $1 billion. He especially could not get on Stephen's bad side. Mr. Gold gave his wife and his son a pointed look. His useless family had stirred up major trouble. He turned to Stephen and lowered his head. "Mr. Adams, please forgive me for being blind. As long as you can forgive me, I'll do anything."
Are you sick? Why are you apologizing to him?
Mrs. Gold exclaimed in surprise. Mr. Gold gritted his teeth. "Do you know how to do anything besides cause me trouble? Get over here and apologize to Mr. Adams." His wife didn't move. She still didn't understand the situation they were in. When Mr. Gold pulled her and their son in front of Stephen, they reluctantly muttered an apology. He didn't feel the slightest bit of pity for his wife and his son's humiliation. "Mr. Adams, please let me know if there's anything else I can do to make up for their disrespect," Mr. Gold said carefully. Stephen looked him in the eye. "I don't know. Why don't you tell me?" The secretaries, who had originally supported Mrs. Gold, changed sides at the drop of a hat. Even though Mr. Gold was the vice president, he was nothing compared to Stephen, who had donated $100 million to the school. Your wife cut in line, and your son even slapped his sister. Not everyone is as brave as Mr. Adams to speak up. You have to take responsibility for your wife and your son's actions. Stephen was amused by these fence-sitters. Just a moment ago, he had been the target of their harsh criticisms, but as soon as his donation came to light, they pretended like they never looked down on him. Mr. Gold took the initiative to placate the situation. "Mr. Adams, I promise that you and Miss Alice will never see my son at this school again. In addition, I'll be divorcing this woman. From today onwards, these two will have nothing to do with me." This was the perfect solution. The secretaries were shocked by his declaration, but that didn't matter. How could people like them ever understand his situation? A few simple words from Stephen could ruin his life and make him lose everything he had. Compared to his achievements, what was a wife and a son? They didn't amount to anything. Stephen nodded. "Whatever you plan to do is up to you. Keep working hard for the school." Mr. Gold was relieved that he would be letting this go without much of a fuss. Hearing that her husband wanted to abandon her, Mrs. Gold immediately tried to beg him to stay. If he left, she would be left with nothing. Mr. Gold was afraid that his wife would make things worse, so he pulled her and his son out of the building. After they left, everything that came after was smooth sailing. Alice was registered as a new student, and she received her class schedule. Los Angeles Academy was similar to a boarding school. There were dorms for their students. Each room accommodated 3 students, and there was a full-time housekeeper who was responsible for meals, laundry, and other basic living essentials. While the enrollment fee was costly, the tuition was similarly pricey. One semester was worth $100,000, but her parents were more than happy to pay it. After finalizing the arrangements for Alice at the school, Stephen drove back to the company to pick up Kim from work. On his way there, he received a call from Christina. She informed him that one of the members of the Black Dragon Guild, Troy, had come to the city in hopes of meeting with him. Even though Matthew and Stanley were at the head of the organization, those who worked closely with them were aware that Stephen was the real leader. As a lackey who quelled the unrest in the city after Roland's death and managed to restore the Black Dragon Guild's reputation, Troy had done a great service to the organization. And so, Stephen decided that he should meet with him once as a reward for his contributions. He told Christina to let Troy know that he would meet with him in the evening at her hotel. In the late afternoon, Helen called Kim into her office. "An important client has decided to invest $500 million into our company, but he wants to assess our business before making the final decision. He recently arrived in the city, and he's staying at the Grand Hotel. As the vice president, you should welcome him and escort him to our company." Harry stood off to the side. "He's in room 8088. Make sure you get the room right." "Go alone," Rebecca added. "Don't bring that troublemaker Stephen along." While Kim's meetings with their business clients didn't always go as planned, there were some successful meetings mixed in, and she had no reason to doubt them this time because she would only be escorting the client via taxi to the company. How hard could it be? After Kim left, Harry sent a text to Troy.
She's coming. Let's begin.
He turned to Helen with a smile.
All that's left to do is to wait for his good news.
I hope you're right, Helen said. She was a little concerned about Harry's plan. Even though she didn't acknowledge Kim, she was still a member of the Cassidy family. Kim left the company and took a taxi to the Grand Hotel. When she arrived, she went to the 8th floor and knocked on room 8088. Mr. Troy, are you in there? I'm Kim Cassidy, the vice president of the Cassidy Group. I'm here to pick you up. A man replied from inside the room.
I'll be right out.
The moment the door opened, a cloth was pressed against Kim's face, and she fell unconscious. 2 men carried her inside and sat her on the floor. One of them made a call.
Troy, she's here.
Good. Tie her up. Remember, don't touch her. Since we'll be meeting with our boss later, we'll ask him what he wants to do with her.
Troy had heard from Harry that Kim was beautiful and that she had the misfortune of marrying a good-for-nothing freeloader husband. After seeing the picture that Harry had sent him, he decided to leave her fate up to Stephen. When Stephen arrived at the company, he didn't see Kim anywhere, and she also wasn't picking up his calls. He overheard the staff at the front desk say that Kim went to the Grand Hotel to pick up an important client. That was Christina's hotel. Stephen didn't think too much of it. The Grand Hotel was a popular location to meet business clients, and a simple escort didn't take that much time. He would meet with Troy and come back to the company to pick Kim up. Stephen drove to the Grand Hotel and went up to room 8087. Upon seeing Stephen, Troy and his subordinates greeted him in unison. "It's nice to see you, boss." Stephen frowned. "Troy, I don't want my identity exposed in Los Angeles for the time being. Do you understand? Just call me Stephen." Troy didn't think it was appropriate to call his boss by his first name, but he had no choice but to agree. "I understand. Besides meeting you, I actually came to Los Angeles because I was hired to kidnap the vice president of the Cassidy Group. I heard she's a beautiful woman. It's a shame that she married a freeloader husband." Stephen's expression changed in an instant, and a chill filled the room. "You kidnapped Kim Cassidy. Well, isn't it a pity that she married a freeloader husband? However, are you aware that I'm the freeloader husband you're referring to?" Troy's eyes widened in fear, and the phone in his hand clattered to the floor. "Please forgive me, I had no idea." "What did you do with my wife?" Stephen asked coldly. If something happened to her, Troy and his subordinates would not survive past tonight. Troy rushed to explain. "She's fine. I only asked my men to tie her up. I told them not to touch her. I was planning to leave her to you." Stephen's expression relaxed slightly. "That had better be the case. Who hired you?" "It was Harry Cassidy." Troy told him the details regarding Harry's plan to kidnap Kim. Stephen slammed his fist on the table and stood up. "It looks like I've underestimated him." Not only had Harry hired someone to spend a night with Kim, he had also planned for an accident. Harry and Kim were both members of the Cassidy family, and Stephen didn't expect him to go as far as to get his own cousin killed. Moreover, it was obvious that Helen had approved of Harry's plan beforehand. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so daring. "Where's Kim? Take me to her," Stephen instructed. At this time, Kim was in the room next door. Her hands and ankles were bound by rope. 2 of Troy's subordinates were keeping an eye on her. "She's really pretty. If it weren't for boss's orders, I would have made my move on her a long time ago." "She's a married woman. What a waste." Kim tried to struggle free of her restraints. "You bastards! Who are you? What do you want?" "Isn't it obvious that we're kidnappers? Our boss told us that we're not allowed to touch you, but that doesn't mean we're not allowed to undress you." "Exactly. We'll just admire you before our boss shows up." Kim shrunk back in her chair as the 2 men approached her. Just as they were about to touch her, the door slammed open. Stephen rushed into the room and kicked the 2 men to the floor. He hurried to Kim's side and untied her restraints. "It's okay, Kim. I'm here now." Once Kim was freed, she threw her arms around him and buried her face in his shoulder. Stephen held her close as he glanced at the 2 men from the corner of his eye. "I don't want to see these 2 again." Troy wasn't pleased when he found out that his 2 subordinates had disobeyed him. He waved his hand, signaling for his other subordinates to come forward. "Drag them out." The 2 men panicked and pleaded for mercy, but they were ignored and taken out of the room.
When it was only the three of them remaining, Troy's phone rang.
Stephen, Harry's calling. Tell him that everything is going according to plan.
Troy nodded and answered the call.
Did Kim take the bait? Harry asked.
Yes, the preparations are done,
Troy replied. Good. Then I won't bother you. Enjoy yourself. When you're done, give me a call and I'll take care of the rest.
Got it, but don't forget to wire me the rest of the payment. If you go back on your word, you'll know what'll happen to you, right?
Troy's acting was flawless. He had to play along to avoid rousing Harry's suspicion.
Sure, you don't need to worry about that.
Harry hung up in anticipation. He'd spent $1 million to get Troy to come to Los Angeles and kidnap Kim. As long as he could get rid of her, the Cassidy group would belong to him. Rebecca was also harboring malicious intentions, but the owner of Global Investments still sided with Kim after discovering that she was the type to sleep around. Harry, don't let things get out of hand, Helen warned. Make sure no one dies. Harry chuckled.
Don't worry, I've got everything under control.
When the time came and an unexpected accident occurred along the way, Helen wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Meanwhile, at the Grand Hotel, Kim had heard the entire conversation. Even though they were rivals who were competing for the company, they were both members of the Cassidy family. She hadn't expected Harry to resort to underhanded tactics and hire a thug to kidnap her and sleep with her. I didn't expect Harry to be this despicable. Grandma won't let him get away with this.
Do you think she'll believe you? Stephen asked. Besides, do you think Harry would be this bold if he didn't have Grandma's support?
Are you saying that Grandma... Kim trailed off. She couldn't believe it.
Leave this to me. I'll take care of it.
Stephen wouldn't let anyone who dared to scheme against Kim get away with it. He motioned for Troy to come closer and explained his plan in a low voice. Troy nodded as he listened. After giving his instructions, Stephen called Christina and asked her to lend him one of her people. She was an influential figure in the underworld, so it went without saying that all of her subordinates were skilled and capable. I know just the person for the job, Christina said. 5 minutes later, a beautiful woman entered room 8088. She was one of Christina's subordinates. The stage was set. The only person missing was Harry.
Troy, it's almost time. Give Harry a call.
Harry received a text from Troy, informing him that he had done the deed.
Rebecca, did you call the reporters?
Yes, they're on standby. Harry eagerly rushed to the Grand Hotel to get rid of Kim. It wouldn't be strange if she were to make an impulsive decision, like jumping out of the 8th floor balcony after being defiled. If Kim wasn't killed, she would always be a thorn in his side at the company. He could only relax if she was dead. When Harry opened the door to room 8088, he came into an empty room. He looked around in confusion. Harry was startled when the door suddenly slammed closed behind him. He turned around and saw an unfamiliar woman in a tight dress and heels.
Who are you?
The woman sized him up. Not bad, but you're not my type. 1 second was all it took for her to throw Harry onto the bed. She tied his arms and ankles to the frame.
What are you doing? Where's Troy? If you dare lay a finger on me, I'll get him to kill you.
Harry brought up Troy's name to intimidate the woman, but she wasn't fazed in the slightest. On the contrary, she looked confused. Troy? Who's that? Meanwhile, a crowd of reporters with their cameras were gathered at the hotel lobby. Rebecca was at the center. Everyone, please listen carefully. In a few minutes, you'll be using your cameras to record the vice president of the Cassidy Group, Kim Cassidy. The reporters were thrilled at the prospect of capturing news that would make the headlines. Aren't we at a hotel? Could this be a scandal? Isn't she married? Is she having an affair with her client? Do you think he's more handsome than her husband? Rebecca smiled. If you want to know the truth, head up to room 8088 and see for yourselves. The reporters swarmed into the elevator. When the elevator doors opened, they bumped into a beautiful woman, but they ignored her and filed into room 8088. When they raised their cameras, they paused and looked at each other. The scene inside was exactly like how Rebecca had imagined it, but the person being humiliated wasn't Kim. It was her brother, Harry. Harry was tied to the bed. His hair was messy, and red lipstick was smeared on his skin. He was shirtless, and his pants were undone. Rebecca rushed to the bedside in a panic and untied him. She kept her voice low. "What's going on?" Harry pushed her out of the way and grabbed his shirt. "Some woman tied me up and messed up my clothes before leaving the room," he whispered. One of the reporters snapped out of his shock. "Breaking news! Harry Cassidy slept with his client at the Grand Hotel." The rest of the reporters followed suit and aimed their cameras at Harry. They had caught him in the act. Harry could already imagine his picture being plastered all over the news tomorrow. "Nothing happened between me and her." But his words fell on deaf ears. The reporters weren't interested in the truth. Harry and Rebecca hurried out of the room and ran to their car to escape the reporters. This had to have been Kim's doing. By the time they returned home, the news had already spread across the city like wildfire. Harry's scandal became the new hot topic for gossip. Kim and Stephen were both present. "Grandma, you can't leave this alone," Harry exclaimed. "This happened to me because of Kim." Rebecca backed him up. "Why did you do this to my brother?" Righteous indignation flickered in Helen's eyes. "You had better explain yourself." Kim gave them cold looks when they ganged up on her. They were the ones who tried to frame her, but they were trying to make her out to be the culprit. Stephen sneered. "Grandma, you told Kim to escort a client at the Grand Hotel, but Harry was there as well. Isn't that weird?" "What's so strange about that?" Rebecca shot back. "Grandma didn't trust Kim to escort an important client, so she asked my brother to accompany her. Is there a problem?" "No problem at all. But even though you say it was business, who's to say he wasn't there to meet with another client? And who would have thought that he would resort to such tactics to get a client to sign a contract with him?" Kim cut Harry off when he was about to defend himself. "Grandma, I did as you asked and escorted the client to the company. I never bumped into Harry at the hotel." Kim shifted the responsibility onto Harry to force them to expose their collusion. "You escorted the client?" Helen echoed. "All right, let me ask you this. Where is the client?" The so-called client was Troy, but that was just his cover. After he did what he came to do and received compensation, he would return to San Francisco. Kim had to be bluffing because there was no reason for him to linger in Los Angeles. Even if she used the excuse that Troy couldn't make it and he had sent someone else to take his place, it wouldn't be difficult for Harry to contact Troy and tell him to clarify that he never did such a thing. This would be exposed to the media, and Kim would have no way out. This was precisely what Helen, Harry, and Rebecca wanted. Even though this wasn't their original plan, the outcome would still be the same. At that time, Kim would have no choice but to resign from the company. However, to everyone's surprise, Kim announced that the client waited outside. Helen gave Kim a doubtful look. "Kim, you're the vice president of the Cassidy Group. Your position entails honesty and sincerity. If you're lying, you'll no longer be deemed worthy of your position." Kim smiled and pointed at the door. "I'm not lying. Look, the client's coming in." Everyone turned to the door. It was Troy in the flesh. He entered the room in large strides and stopped in front of Helen. "You must be Miss Helen. I've heard all about the Cassidy Group from Miss Kim, and I'm pleased to announce that I would like to invest $500 million into your company." Helen was stupefied, but it wasn't just her. Harry and Rebecca were just as astonished. Troy was only a subordinate of the Black Dragon Guild. How could he afford to invest $500 million into a random company that had no relations to his organization? "Troy, are you joking around?" Harry questioned. Before heading to the hotel, he had sent Troy the remaining payment of $500,000. Troy looked at him with a dissatisfied expression. "I'm not joking. Also, don't call my name without honorifics. We're not acquaintances." Harry was speechless. There was nothing he could do or say. Regardless of Troy's position, he was still a member of the Black Dragon Guild. He couldn't risk going against him. But that wasn't the end. What shocked Harry even more was that Troy really did plan on investing $500 million into the Cassidy Group. Troy even came prepared with a contract. It was clearly stated that Kim was to personally manage these funds. Later that night, Stephen and Kim went home after the fiasco was settled. Natalie wasn't happy to find out where Alice had gone. "What? Do you actually send her to Los Angeles Academy?" Are you crazy? That's a school for high-class families. The enrollment fee alone is $500,000. Tell me honestly, did you use Kim's money to pay for the expenses?
Mom, he didn't take a cent from me, Kim said. She was also curious as to where Stephen had gotten this money from. It was not a small amount by any means.
Are you expecting me to believe that? Kim, you had better divorce him sooner rather than later. He'll end up taking all your money if this continues. Also, did you forget about the owner of Global Investments' generosity? He'll show up someday. So what's wrong with letting go of your freeloader husband?
Kim shot Natalie down in annoyance. Why do you keep going on and on about that? I'm not getting a divorce. Natalie ignored Stephen's existence and whispered in a loud voice.
Have you forgotten about my mom's 70th birthday? It'll be coming up in a week. Our family will be paying her a visit on the day of. You can't bring Stephen along. Just find a way to contact the owner of Global Investment and invite him instead.
What are you talking about? Stephen is my husband. Of course I have to take him with me. As for the owner of Global Investment, I've never seen him before. After arguing with Natalie for some time, Kim stormed off to her room. Stephen followed her.
Are you really going to bring me to your grandma's 70th birthday?
Of course, you're my husband. Who else would I take with me? My mom's always been like that. Don't take what she said to heart. When I meet the owner of Global Investment, I'll return the Moon of the Nile and this house to him. Stephen was amused by her determination. He wouldn't be taking those gifts back, even if his life depended on it.
Have you thought about your grandma's birthday present?
Yeah, I've talked about this with Mom. She said that everyone in her family knows how much wealth the Cassidy family has, so she asked to prepare the perfect birthday present. But the Cassidy family has never favored us, so we don't have that much money in savings. Even so, Mom put in a lot of effort and managed to get her hands on a valuable ginseng and herbal tonic. Stephen thought about it.
That's not a bad gift. What about your grandpa? What's he interested in?
My maternal grandparents were both politicians in the past. When they retired, they became mayors. When they were still politicians, they once drank this particular alcohol that they were very fond of. They've been trying to find it ever since, but none of the brands they've seen in stores are the same.
Was it something expensive?
I'm not sure. Compared to the brands we have today, what they're looking for is most likely outdated and inferior. I don't understand why they like it so much. As for Stephen, he understood the sentiments of Kim's grandparents. The liquor they were searching for may not be the most expensive or one of the best, but to them, it was special. Back in the day, when they were only starting out as politicians, there was a special supply of alcohol distributed amongst the higher ranks. Kim's grandparents weren't eligible to receive a bottle for themselves, but they somehow managed to get a taste. They attributed this alcohol as something special that they would only be able to enjoy once they reached a higher-ranked position. But to their dismay, this alcohol had phased out after they reached the top. After Kim went to bed, Stephen gave Jack a call.
In a week, I'll be going to Santa Ana for Kim's maternal grandmother's 70th birthday. Are you aware of any special liquor they use to hand out to the higher-ranked officials of the city?
There's a military camp in Santa Ana,
Jack said.
Xavier Riley is one of the generals who the palace has trained. I believe he might know what you're looking for. When you arrive in the city, you can meet Xavier and ask him personally.
As the Grand Palace Master, Stephen had the authority to command the country's military. Xavier was an elite general in the military, trained by the palace. He was known as one of the country's 4 great generals. These 4 generals used to serve the previous Grand Palace Master. The liquor that Kim's grandparents enjoyed back then were now only made for specific departments in the military. It was much more expensive than the liquor that ordinary high-level officials enjoyed. This special liquor would be the perfect present for Kim's maternal grandparents. The days following the incident at the hotel were peaceful. Troy's $500 million investment, along with the other $500 million investment from Global Investment, the Cassidy family's crisis was finally resolved. In addition, the Cassidy Group thrived thanks to Kim's outstanding skills in business. They were rising up the ranks in the industry with each passing day. During this time, Stephen received a call from Andrew.
Mr. Adams, Melinda has arrived in the city.
She's been laying low since then, and I suspect she's scheming something in secret. What would you like us to do? Continue to keep an eye on her for now. I want to see if she's more capable than my cousin Garrett.
A week passed in the blink of an eye, and today was Kim's maternal grandmother's 70th birthday. Santa Ana wasn't that far from Los Angeles, but because the road was currently being repaired, driving wouldn't be as convenient. Natalie and Kim decided to take the train instead. The commute would take around an hour. When they were about to leave the house, Natalie noticed Stephen following them. She rolled her eyes and pulled Kim aside.
How many times have I told you? If you bring him with you, you'll only be making a fool of yourself.
Stephen is my husband. How is bringing him to see my grandparents considered an embarrassment? Natalie heaved a sigh.
Fine, he can come.
She shot him a glare.
Stephen, when we arrive, you had better watch your mouth. Don't speak out of turn, understand?
Stephen gave her a bright smile.
Don't worry, Mom. I won't embarrass you. I've even prepared a gift for Grandma.
Natalie was a little surprised, but she composed herself.
You have a present? I doubt it's anything good. I'll be grateful if it's something normal.
At the train station, Natalie and Kim passed through the security checkpoint without a hitch, but the alarm sounded when Stephen walked through. The security guards were on high alert. They surrounded Stephen and carefully searched his backpack and the boxes he was carrying. After repeated inspections, they didn't find anything out of the ordinary. They suspected the alarms went off because of something on his person.
Sir, we'll need to inspect you further. Please cooperate and follow us inside.
We didn't break any rules, Kim said nervously. Why are you taking him away? Natalie glanced at her watch.
Hurry up, Stephen. If we don't hurry, we'll be late.
Stephen reassured them before following the security guards into the room. The security guards were stunned when he took off his jacket and sweater. His torso was covered in scars. On closer inspection, they were from bullet wounds. After the priest saved him, Stephen had experienced all sorts of trials. Gunfights were a common occurrence. He also participated in one particularly gruesome battle in which the 4 generals were surrounded by 1,000 foes. Stephen had single-handedly taken down all 1,000 enemies and saved the 4 generals. From then on, he became the designated successor of the palace. The security guard aimed his gun at Stephen.
Who are you? If you don't speak truthfully, we'll have to use force.
The other 4 security guards pulled out their guns.
You're not qualified to ask about my identity,
Stephen said calmly. To him, the guns were nothing more than scrap metal. They didn't pose a danger.
I suggest you talk instead of making your situation worse,
the lead security guard said. He was ready to fire the moment Stephen made any suspicious movements. In his eyes, Stephen was an extremely dangerous individual. However, before the security guard could react, Stephen moved, and the gun in his hand disappeared. The security guard blinked and saw his gun in Stephen's hand. It had been dismantled. The other security guards were shocked, but no one dared to shoot. The lead security guard instructed his colleagues to report this to the higher-ups. Stephen didn't stop them. Soon, a crowd of police officers entered the room.
We're doomed,
Natalie exclaimed.
They're definitely here for Stephen. Just what did he do to make so many of them come here?
Kim's mind was also in a mess, and Natalie was making it worse. Stop it. A while later, a squad of armed soldiers arrived and surrounded the security room. Natalie started panicking.
Even people from the army are here. This is it. Stephen's done now. Kim, let's hurry up and leave. We should cut off ties with him as soon as possible.
Kim was speechless. How can you be like this? Stephen is your son-in-law. You don't even know what happened.
I'm saying this for your own good. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late.
In the room, the lead security pointed Stephen out to the chief security officer.
He's a suspicious and dangerous individual. It's highly likely that he's a drug dealer or a terrorist who sneaked into the country from overseas.
The chief security officer scrutinized Stephen, but he couldn't sense any malicious intent.
Please show us your ID. We'll need to verify your identity.
Sure. Stephen took out his ID and gave it to him. The chief security officer passed it to his colleague, who left to take care of it.
A minute later, his colleague returned and informed him of the results in a low voice.
His identity is confidential? Are you positive?
Yes, I believe there's more to this man than meets the eye. I'm afraid that we'll be investigated by the National Security Agency for attempting to access an S-rated classified file. The chief security officer glanced at Stephen warily. They couldn't risk an investigation from the National Security Agency. Just who was this man? Several soldiers entered the room. One of them showed his ID.
Hello, I'm Captain Floyd, the commander of Santa Ana's Special Forces.
Seeing the soldiers armed with guns behind Captain Floyd, the chief security officer didn't even need to check his ID to know that it was real. Captain Floyd didn't pay any attention to the chief security officer. He and the other soldiers went up to Stephen and saluted him.
Santa Ana's Special Squadron Leader, Captain Floyd, is here to report to the Commander-in-Chief.
The chief security officer broke out in a cold sweat. There weren't many people in this country who could command the army. One of them was the Grand Palace Master. To think that the young man in front of him was that mysterious commander? Captain Floyd gave the chief security officer a warning.
We've received news that one of your employees attempted to access an S-rated file. Captain Floyd, this is a misunderstanding. Attempting to access an S-rated classified file is a crime in and of itself. Calling it a misunderstanding does not suffice as an explanation. I believe the National Security Agency's investigation team will come looking for you very soon. If you have anything further to say, tell them when they arrive. Furthermore, today's incident is top secret. The commander does not want this to get out.
I understand, the chief security officer said frantically. The speed at which Santa Ana's army took action had exceeded Stephen's expectations. Los Angeles was within their jurisdiction. After Xavier found out that Stephen would be coming to their city soon, he had kept tabs on him to make sure that no problems would arise. After all, Stephen was the Grand Palace Master. Stephen was satisfied with how they handled the situation.
Captain Floyd, well done. I'm heading to Santa Ana for personal matters, and I don't want my visit to be high profile. When you get back, tell Xavier that I'll meet with him soon.
Yes, sir. Captain Floyd saluted him before leading the other soldiers away. Kim hurried over to Stephen when he finally came out of the security room. She gave him a once-over. What happened? Did they make things difficult for you? Stephen smiled.
No, it's fine. Their equipment malfunctioned, that's all.
Natalie waved her hand.
Hurry up, we have to go. If we don't get on the train now, we'll have to take the next one, and we'll be late for your grandmother's birthday.
The three of them rushed to the platform, but the train had already left the station. In fact, it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes since it left. Natalie vented her frustrations on Stephen.
This is all your fault. The next train will be here in 2 hours. There's no way we'll make it in time. And Kim, what did I tell you? You should have left him at home.
Without saying anything, Stephen went back the way they came. Seeing him walking away by himself, Natalie became even angrier.
Kim, do you see this? Not only did we miss the train because of him, he even wants to leave us behind.
Mom, Stephen isn't that kind of person.
I think he is.
Meanwhile, Stephen went back to the security room to have a talk with the chief security officer. According to him, the next train to Santa Ana would arrive in 2 hours, but there was a special train to Santa Ana that could leave the station at any time without affecting the operation of the other trains. 10 minutes later, Stephen returned to the platform.
In a minute, there'll be a special train headed directly to Santa Ana.
Natalie scoffed.
I've never heard of that. Do you think your family owns the railway department or something?
In the next second, the sound of a whistle caught everyone's attention. The train pulled into the station, and the words Los Angeles Special Line labeled on the front. The door opened, and the conductor stepped off the train with a smile.
Good morning, and welcome aboard. We spent $2 million on our gift, but you only spent $300,000. Do you even care about your parents?
Linda chimed in. She only acted like an older sister at times like these.
Natalie, you have to put some effort in if you're picking out birthday presents. Are Mom and Dad only worth $300,000?
Natalie was utterly ashamed. Mavis was displeased, but she took the gift anyway. That's enough. It's rare for Natalie to come all the way here from Los Angeles. I'll accept it.
After Natalie and her sisters gave their gifts, it was the younger generation's turn. While Gordon and Mavis had 5 daughters, they also had 5 granddaughters. Linda's daughter was married, and her husband was said to be an executive of a well-known company. They prepared an expensive, nutritious gift for Mavis. Kelly's daughter married into a wealthy family, and they purchased a Maserati sports car for Mavis.
We're old now, Mavis said. We won't be able to drive a sports car.
Even so, she was still happy with the gift because the car was worth more than $5 million. Gianna's daughter and Edward weren't married yet, but it was about time. Edward prepared a limited edition military blade. While its value was not as high as the first 2 gifts, Xavier and Captain Floyd had visited in person thanks to him. That alone was enough for Gordon and Mavis to deem this blade as a valuable gift. As a soldier, Edward's leave of absence was subject to change depending on the situation. After handing over this gift, he had to rush back to the camp. Gordon approved of Edward's early departure.
Of course, the army is important. To be this well acquainted with Captain Floyd and Captain Riley must mean that your future will be bright. Hurry and go back.
After Edward left, Stephen leaned over to Kim and whispered,
I'm going out to get the birthday present I prepared for your grandparents.
Kim nodded. All right. When Stephen left the house and walked down the street, a Jeep arrived to pick him up. He jumped into the passenger seat. Captain Floyd drove. He saluted Stephen before heading in the direction of the camp. When they arrived, Edward was returning to his troop and caught sight of Captain Floyd. The man walking next to him seemed oddly familiar. Edward felt like the man resembled Stephen, but he quickly dismissed this thought. It couldn't be him. Edward had originally asked for a day of leave, but his superiors informed him that an inspection would be taking place today. And so, he ended his vacation early and hurried back to the camp. Stephen and Captain Floyd met up with Xavier in his office.
Gather your subordinates and I'll assess them.
Xavier smiled.
Mr. Adams, I promise you won't be disappointed. Captain Floyd, tell the Special Forces to gather outside.
Before Captain Floyd left, Stephen added,
There's a sergeant named Edward. Let him join the Special Forces.
Captain Floyd saluted him.
Yes, sir.
The Special Forces were excited after Captain Floyd told them that the Commander-in-Chief would be coming for an inspection. Under Captain Floyd's command, they lined up and waited in anticipation. Edward was among them. He had been surprised when Captain Floyd informed him that he was to join the Special Forces and the inspection. It would be an honor to meet the Commander-in-Chief. Not long after, Stephen, accompanied by Xavier and Captain Floyd, went to the training grounds to assess the Special Forces. The soldiers saluted Stephen when they saw him. As for Edward, he was shocked that Stephen was the Commander-in-Chief. He really was hiding his identity. The Special Forces team, who Captain Floyd had personally trained, were strong and capable. Stephen felt satisfied. As everyone left to return to their duties, Stephen stopped Edward.
Xavier gave me some bottles of alcohol. They're in the truck. Take them back for me later.
Having discovered Stephen's identity, Edward felt honored to work for him.
Yes, sir.
Since Stephen was running late, he took a few bottles of alcohol and left first. Edward would take the rest back. At this time, Megan's daughter and her boyfriend had just presented Gordon and Mavis with their gift. It was a beautiful painting. Megan looked around and noticed that Stephen had disappeared.
Natalie, where did your son-in-law go? Did he run away to hide because he didn't prepare a present? I suppose it's a good thing. It'll save him the embarrassment.
Natalie was furious as she turned to Kim.
Where's Stephen? He didn't really run away, did he?
Just as everyone was wondering where he had gone, Stephen came back.
I wasn't hiding. I went out to get my gift.
Megan pointed at the black bag in his hand.
Is that it?
That's right.
Everyone laughed and ridiculed him. Natalie's son-in-law knows how to be unique. His gift is different from everyone else's.
Is that bag filled with fruits or vegetables?
I'm guessing it's some kind of specialty from his hometown. The black bag in Stephen's hand was too ordinary. It was no different from the plastic bags given out to customers at a supermarket. The birthday presents thus far had been lavishly packaged. Even Kim had her doubts about this gift. Natalie couldn't hold in her anger anymore.
This is ridiculous! If you couldn't afford a gift, you should have just come empty-handed instead of making a fool of yourself.
Mom, you'll know whether it's a good or a bad gift soon, Stephen said. He went up to Gordon and Mavis and took out a few bottles of wine from the bag. There was no label on them. Megan clicked her tongue. That's it? Where did you even find these? Do you think these inferior products are worthy of being gifts? There's no brand on the bottles. Stephen ignored her.
Grandpa, I heard that you were searching for a specific liquor that couldn't be found in stores. Have a taste. I'm sure you won't be disappointed.
While Gordon had his doubts, he was still curious about its taste.
All right, I'll try it.
When Gordon opened one of the bottles, a familiar scent filled the air. As soon as he realized what this wine was, he took a sip to confirm. Gordon whispered to Mavis,
This is the same wine we tried many years ago. Nowadays, not just anyone can get their hands on a bottle because they're distributed in the military.
Mavis's face lit up.
What a rare treasure. No matter how wealthy we are, this isn't something money can buy. Natalie, your son-in-law is more capable than he seems.
This was the first time Mavis had praised her all day, and it was clear that Gordon loved the gift. Natalie was flattered. She never thought that Stephen could be reliable. Gordon and Mavis were curious as to where Stephen got these bottles of wine. After all, everyone was aware that Natalie's son-in-law was famous for being a freeloader. Stephen hurriedly came up with an excuse.
I'm acquainted with the head of the logistics department in Santa Ana's military camp. He gave me a few bottles when I asked.
Gordon and Mavis nodded in understanding.
So that's how it is.
Mavis let out a sigh.
It's a pity that these are limited to the military. Don't drink so fast, Gordon. Take it slow. At this rate, you'll be done with these bottles in a day or two.
Don't worry about that, Stephen said. I can get you enough bottles to fit a truck anytime you want.
Gordon and Mavis were amused by his promise.
It's all right. It can't be easy to get that many bottles. This much is already enough for us.
Linda's husband looked at Stephen in annoyance.
Exactly. I've been working in the local government for many years, and I've rarely seen this blend of liquor. Do you really think you can use your connections in the military and make them hand over a bunch of bottles? Even Captain Riley wouldn't dare to ask for that many. Only the commander-in-chief would be brave enough.
I am the commander-in-chief, Stephen said.
Everyone laughed and treated his words as a joke. It was rare for Gordon and Mavis to praise Natalie. She was afraid that Stephen would ruin everything. She glared at him as a signal to be quiet.
I'm telling the truth, Stephen said seriously. A big truck of liquor will arrive in a few minutes.
As soon as he finished his sentence, a military truck drove up to the entrance. The butler who stood guard at the gates rushed into the house to give his report.
A truck from the military is here. It's filled to the brim with bottles of wine.
Once again, everyone's gaze fell on Stephen. There was no need to confirm the wine in the truck. It was obvious that it was the military's special wine. Gordon and Mavis exchanged a suspicious glance. Was Stephen that influential? He was always known to be a pushover. Maybe he had been hiding his true identity for these past 3 years. Natalie couldn't help but ask,
Is there really a truck full of wine outside?
Of course, Stephen answered. Gordon and Mavis headed to the door.
Let's go out and see.
A military truck parked at the entrance, and several soldiers were moving the boxes of wine onto the pavement. Among these soldiers was Edward. Gianna and her family were excited to see him.
Everyone look, it's Edward,
Gianna exclaimed.
He's the one who drove the truck here. Captain Floyd and Captain Riley paid us a visit on Mom's 70th birthday, and they probably wanted to follow up with a gift.
Mavis praised her.
Your son-in-law is someone to be proud of.
Edward was put in an awkward position. He already knew Stephen's real identity, and it made him uneasy to take all the credit. He stole a glance at Stephen, only to find that he was as calm as ever. If it weren't for the fact that he'd signed a confidentiality agreement, he would have clarified right then and there that this truck of wine was Stephen's gift. As a result, Edward could only be vague. Actually, no matter how close I am to my superiors, I'm not qualified to request these bottles of wine. One of the military leaders came to visit today and happened to overhear that my girlfriend's grandma's 70th birthday was today, so they wanted me to bring these over as a gift. Linda's husband immediately knew who it was.
According to my sources, there's only one person who fits the bill. The commander-in-chief. He arrived in the city today and he came for an inspection.
Everyone was shocked by the news. There were rumors that the commander-in-chief led the 4 great generals to victory during the battle against foes who coveted their country's territory. And apparently, he had a secret identity, the Grand Palace Master. Even though the palace possessed half of the world's wealth and power, to ordinary citizens, its existence was beyond the reaches of their imagination. The commander-in-chief was a more realistic existence whom the citizens of the country could admire and respect. And this famed commander-in-chief had personally asked Edward to deliver a truck of wine. Mavis could barely contain her excitement. I can't believe the commander-in-chief himself gave me a gift. This is an honor.
Gordon was also in awe. Our family's reputation will soar once people know about this.
Linda's husband was the first person to flatter Edward. He turned to Gianna and her family.
I'm happy for you. Edward has a bright future ahead of him. Even the commander-in-chief recognized his potential.
Upon hearing his remark, everyone came back to their senses and complimented them. As Edward's girlfriend, Gianna's daughter beamed with pride. Edward was embarrassed, but the only thing he could do was accept the flattery from the crowd. Natalie, who had been enjoying the praises from the parents, instantly became quiet. No one paid attention to the 3 of them. Everyone crowded around Gianna and her family. On the other hand, Kim wondered how Stephen knew that this truck would arrive today. Megan looked over when the thought struck her. Hold on, I just remembered someone saying that he sent over this truck of wine. He really knows no shame. It's obvious it wasn't him. Everyone's attention shifted to Stephen. He probably knew about this beforehand and came to steal the glory for himself, Kelly added. Luckily, Edward personally drove the truck and foiled his plan. Natalie, I must say, you have a poor eye for people, Linda said. A son-in-law who only knows how to freeload and steal other people's achievements? There's no saving him. Edward was worried when everyone started criticizing Stephen. He rushed to defend him. You've got it wrong. Stephen did meet with the head of the logistics department at the camp. Enough, Mavis said. Edward, I know you're kind and willing to help others, but someone like Stephen isn't worth it. Even if he did meet with the head of the logistics department, how would he have the authority to send over a truck of wine? Gordon agreed with her.
In my opinion, Natalie's son-in-law only knows how to bluff. Someone like him isn't worth mentioning. Out of consideration for Edward and the commander-in-chief, we'll let this go.
Edward heaved a sigh. The commander-in-chief who they were all talking about was standing right next to them.